Hi, everybody. It is Elektra Yao, artist visa lawyer. I'm here today to talk to you about green cards. I think that everybody who comes, or a lot of people at least who come to the US, want to end up working here and living here permanently. Specifically, artists who come here to seek out the highest heights of their industry. I think that they are particularly interested in the EB-1A self-petition green card. Right. That is what I want to talk to you today about. And I'm going to talk to you today about a green card of mine that was just recently approved. So let's start with the basics. What is an artist green card? The artist green card is known as the EB-1A. The EB-1A is a really special type of green card because it is one of the few green cards that is a self-petition green card. Well, what does self-petition mean? Self-petition means you don't need a job. You don't need a job offer. You don't need an employer. You don't need somebody who wants to work with you. This is not a perm application or any type of work visa like an O1 where you need to prove that you're going to be working. This is self-petition. You are doing it on your own. You are petitioning for yourself. So it is a self-petition green card. Do you have the option of having an employer petition for you? Absolutely. You can absolutely have an employer petition for you. But if you're an artist, chances are you're not going to want to get a job involved. So you're going to petition for yourself. Okay, now how many criteria do we have for the EB-1A? We've got 10 regulatory criteria. You only need a minimum of 3 to satisfy this 10 criteria, or the first part of the analysis. The second part of the analysis is also known as the Kazarian analysis. This is where they're looking at the totality of the different criteria and evaluating that totality of the criteria. Okay, so this is a very, very, very basic rundown of the EB-1A. Let's talk about my client and what happened in her case. Now, she is a visual artist. Now, visual artist is a term that I use for my clients who kind of are masters of all trades, right? They are great at photography, they're great at filmmaking, art direction, etc. So we have filed her as a visual artist. As a disclaimer, her O1 history is as a visual artist. I have done her O1s, and all of her O1s were as a visual artist. So that continuity was very, very important. And that decision to call her a visual artist, this was established when I met her when we did her first O1, because we ultimately knew, or she ultimately knew, she wanted to file the green card. Okay, why is this continuity important? This continuity is important because the officer has broad investigation powers. If he or she wants to go and look at your past petitions and see, what happened, what were you approved of, what was the basis of approval, he or she can do so. So I think that continuity is extremely important because, number one, it strategically informs the officer of your long-standing expertise in the field. If you've got 201s, that's 6 years, that's 6 years at least as a visual artist, in addition to what we're asking for to be approved as a visual artist under the EB-1A criteria. So my client is a visual artist, kind of great at everything that she does. Most important thing about my client is she hustled. She listened to me. Most of my clients, we do 201s on the first year, the second 01. It's when we file green cards. We've had them all approved. We've had them all approved. Have RFEs occurred? Absolutely. And I'm going to talk about this client's RFE. But the most important thing that she did is she listened to me. I told her, work as much as possible, paid work, unpaid work, so that you give me data, the data that I need to analyze your case to pick and choose what achievements I'm going to include within my legal arguments. Client was fabulous, worked her butt off on both O1 so that I would have enough information to be able to craft my legal arguments, win the first part of the analysis, which is the 3-part criteria, and then win the second part of the analysis, which is the Kazarian analysis. Okay, so client, we filed her as a visual artist. We argued her exhibitions. We argued her press. We argued her original contributions. We argued her lead roles. We argued, I think, a total of maybe like 6 or 7 criteria. Now, client was very, very qualified. Just so you know, I think a lot of people don't know this, But just because a petition is submitted doesn't mean it's automatically going to get approved. Now, the person preparing the petition is an attorney, right? In my case, I know a lot about EB1s and EB2s and O1s. I am very, very knowledgeable of it. I'm an attorney. The person evaluating your petition is not an attorney. So I think it's important to be prepared for the mistakes that a non-attorney can make with such a complex case type. And in this case, in my client's case, mistakes were made by the evaluating officer, misapplication of the law, misunderstanding of the law, very, very common errors that I see from an officer. So I just want all of you who are watching, who are thinking about the EB-1A, to really measure your expectations, because it can be a tightly prepared petition, expertly prepared petition, but it's being evaluated by a non-attorney, somebody who is not an attorney, someone who does not have the legal training that an attorney does, and most importantly, probably does not have a background in the arts, for example, the way I do. For those of you who don't know, I have a film degree. I studied photography. I've had my work published as a photographer, so I know a great deal about the visual image and about photography, in addition to be an attorney representing artists. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there so that expectations are measured for whoever decides to embark on this EB1 or even O1 journey. Now, of course, file the case premium processing. And I know a lot of the times when I do consultations, clients will say, but I don't want to file premium processing because other attorneys said this, other attorneys said that. Listen, an RFE can happen, right? Almost 95% of my clients file premium processing, and we have a very, very high approval rate. The decision to file premium processing or not is a strategic decision that should be made with your attorney, and a lot of considerations need to go into place when you make that decision. But with that being said, almost all of my clients file premium processing, including this client for her EB-1A. Now, file the case. I'm very confident in this case because I have assisted her in architecting her career for the last 6 years. So I know exactly what I'm going to argue. I know exactly how I argued it. Of course, what happens? We got an RFE. Mind you, the previous EB1 case I filed a case like maybe 1 month before, straight approval, no RFE, different position. My thoughts are that the more novel a position is, the less likely of an RFE you're going to get. So that previous case that I filed, EB-1A, no RFE, straight approval. This was for a creative hairstylist. So this person was not a traditional hairstylist. This person did like fantasy hairstyles. So client gets RFE. Of course, client is devastated, but it's, again, to be expected when a non-attorney is evaluating such a complex case type. What do? You get an RFE. What do? How do you argue the case? How do you win this case after you've put so much work into it? Now, my style for RFEs is very aggressive. Very aggressive in the sense that I like to really point out respectfully the deficiencies in the analysis, in addition to providing them with additional information and forcing them to give me an answer. Why are you not evaluating this with the proper legal standard? Why are you not looking at this in the way that you should? Here's the law, here's the case law, here are the regulations. That is my style. So my RFE responses actually end up being, in her case, her RFE response was 60 pages. So a 60-page legal brief, really encouraging the officer to really properly evaluate and look at the evidence. Now, let's go over the criteria that we argued, and I'll tell you what I think is best for these types of cases. Now, if you are a visual artist, and I use that term very loosely. If you are someone who is a painter, a sculptor, a filmmaker, a photographer, whatever sort of subcategory within the visual arts, you need to be showcasing your work. Now, don't think about, how great the gallery is or how great it's not. You should be thinking, I need people to see my work. I need people who are not me to look at my work, right? The only way to do this is to have it in a public setting. Now, I'm here in New York, so we are used to all different types of settings, right? It can be a coffee shop, it can be a gallery, it can be a pop-up gallery, it can be an online gallery. The important thing is you need to show your work. People need to see your work. Why is this important? Because this is something that can be easily argumented. This is something that I can easily prove. And you can enumerate it. It's something that is not so, how can I explain it? Not so high concept, right? It's either have you shown your work or not. So I find it to be one of the easier criterions to argue. I like to argue it because, again, it doesn't require so much mental flexibility or mental gymnastics on the part of the officer. Hi, Jamal Juggling. Thank you for watching this live, and thank you so much for watching my shorts. The visual, the exhibition part, again, it's kind of like a no-brainer. If you've done it, then I can put it in, I can argue it, I can discuss the type of gallery, I can find what is special about it. It doesn't require, again, mental gymnastics. You've either done it or you haven't done it. It's not so high concept like, what is your original contribution? What is your what is your lead role? What is your artistic contributions? Those are more high concept and high complex or ideas that need to be proven and illustrated, right? But exhibitions, you've either done it or you don't. So if you are a visual artist, you need to go out there and showcase your work, right? Again, I don't care if it's a traditional gallery. I don't care if it's a coffee shop. I don't care if it's a pop-up gallery. Figure it out. You need to get it done, especially if you're thinking long-term about EB-1 artist green card. Number 2, press. This is a numbers game, right? If you have an O1, if you're seeking your O1, you need to start getting press about you. So you need people to write about what is it that makes you interesting or special. Don't have press about academia. Academia is not necessary for an EB-1A or an O1. Academia is great in the real world, but in terms of like the O1, the EB-1A, it is not a requirement at all. So don't get press about academics. Even a college degree, I don't need to see it. It's not dispositive or important for these types of cases. So press is a numbers game. If you've got one press article, you know that it's not going to cut it for EB-1A. EB-1A, high stakes, complex cases. You want to start sourcing out different sorts of media, whether it's print media, whether it's online media, whether it's blogs. At this early point in your EB-1A stage, you should not be so critical of the different outlets that are writing about you, podcasts, interviews. All of these things are important to start to develop. Of course, once you are in the thick of it, right? Once you are more like actually working on your case, then I can evaluate and tell you what is good and what is bad. But again, this is a numbers game. So if you're starting off with 5 or less, that's not a good point. You need to get more. It's a harsh reality, but there are publicists out there. There are different marketing agencies. You can liaise with different players within your industries. I actually have a LinkedIn video on YouTube, or sorry, a video on YouTube about LinkedIn and how artists can successfully use LinkedIn to improve their professional profile and thus improve their chances of securing or getting approved for an O1 or an EB-1A. So exhibitions, again, not high concept. You've either done it or you haven't. Press, it's a numbers game. You either, if you're starting off with 5 or less, not a great point. You need to get more press. Now, a common question that I get asked is, well, how many press articles should I get? This is, again, something that is difficult to answer because there's no law that says you need 5 press articles. There's no law that says you need 20 press articles. But logic would lead us to believe that the more press articles you have, the more renown you have, the more of a strong reputation you have, the more of a sustained reputation you have. These are all trigger words that reclaim or speak to the regulatory criteria. So my formula, what I like to do, or what I like to see, or what my perfect client would be, is somebody who is consistent. If you have 0 articles, that's a great point because that means that you can only go up, right? You should be consistently getting articles. Now, if that consistency is one article a year, okay, it's one article a year. I would invite you to try to get more, to try to source more, but you want to be consistent, because having an article, at least one article every year for 6 years, right? 201s, that's better than having 5 or none. So you should be working on getting more articles, as many articles as possible, because again, it's a numbers game. It's not high concept. You're not asking the officer to do mental gymnastics when he or she is evaluating your case. They're looking at exhibitions, great, he or she has done it. They're looking at press, great, there's like a good number of press articles. Not a lot of mental gymnastics. We want to make this as user friendly, reader friendly for a non-attorney as possible, which means tightening it up and making it easy for them as much as possible. So let's talk about press. My client has a lot of press. She's had this person has had a lot of press throughout her career. But what happened? We got an RFE stating that because she is a visual artist, the press is not about her, which is very common language, but the press is about her work and therefore not about her. Do you see this weird circular reasoning that they have? It's wrong. When you have press articles that include your pictures or your work, and there is a description of you, this is about you. Otherwise, you would not be in the article, right? So we had to not only include excerpts of the press articles that discussed her or that discussed her company, because, for example, they were saying the press is about her company, but it's not about her. But she is the company. People are going to her because of her. People are going to the company because of her and her expertise. They're not going to the company because of the assistants that work there. They're going to the company because of her. Like when people come to our firm, they're coming, even though it's a company, this is a law firm, they're generally coming because they expect to receive my expertise when we're working on a case. So the firm or press about the firm is tantamount to press about me, right? This is what we needed to argue. So we needed to argue a couple of things in the press RFE. We needed to argue press about the companies, press about the client. We need to argue there are actual excerpts you need to read. You need to read the press. And we made it easy for them. We included the press excerpts in the RFE response. And number 3, we had to point out the law. Like, this is about her. You have a duty. You have a duty to read it. You have a duty to evaluate it. You are not rising up to your duty. That's illegal. So again, even if I'm making it seem like, okay, press is a numbers game, there can be issues that occur with press articles. Thank you so much for everybody who's watching. I know this is a long video, but I want to kind of illustrate and give you firsthand knowledge, very recent, right? She got approved, I think, like the day after New Year's. It's firsthand, real-time knowledge about what's actually going on with EB-1 cases. So if this is something that is in your sphere, you want to think about, what's actually happening, because that can inform your process. Now, high salary. This is, again, something that they like to nitpick, right? We argued high salary. In her petition because this person is making what would be considered a high salary. Not considered high salary based on my opinion, but based on high salary based on what the government has determined. So we included sources from private organizations, and also from the government, to showcase that this is indeed considered to be a high salary in her field. Government, USAS had an issue with it, but again, we just needed to point out the evidence and force them to do their job, which is to evaluate what is included within the petition. Now, the hard criteria, which is original contributions, lead role, critical role, these are hard things to argue. Why are they hard things to argue? Because they don't have any definitions. That's really that's really what it is. There are no definitions to these terms. There's no definition for critical. There's no contribution. There's no definition for lead. There's so many, and it's so industry specific, meaning that what would be considered a critical role in, for example, a ballet company is going to be considered something different in a film production, right? Even though a gaffer is not the star of the film or not the actor within a film. A gaffer is a lead electrician. So again, these concepts have no concrete definition. These words have no concrete definitions, and these words, their definitions, um, transform based on the industry that we're talking about. This is why it is difficult to argue, because number one, you're educating the officer first and foremost. You might be an expert in gaffing, you might be an expert in lighting design, but the officer is not. The officer does not have your training. The officer does not have your experience. The officer does not have your passion. So, first and foremost, the letters of recommendation, which are proving original contributions and improving lead role, are there to educate the officer. Those letters need to properly lay down the foundation of what your industry is. I think, and this is based on my experience with my clients as an attorney, if you do not do so, you are setting it up to you're setting yourself up for failure. Someone has a question: what would constitute as commercial success? Also, no definition. Does it need to be comparable to the most successful in the field? No, it does not need to be comparable to most successful in the field. Commercial success, this is again one of those things that depends on the industry. I've argued for models, commercial success is being on the cover of a magazine. For my actors, I've argued that commercial success is a sold out house. Really depends on the industry. For my graphic designers, sometimes I have clients who have their work in billboards. That's commercial success. Sometimes I have filmmakers whose work is reposted online by Variety or Sundance. That is commercial success. Or in the sense that I've given that achievement the definition of commercial success, and it's been accepted by USAS because the cases have been approved. So it's very industry specific. There's no concrete definition. It's very, very important when you're on your O1 or your EB-1A journey to really look at your career holistically. I always tell clients, create a marketing plan for yourself. I mean, it's good for your O1 and it's good for your EB1, but it's also great for your career. And again, we can really, really break this down. Like, how many articles, and guys, it's common sense. If you're a singer and you have no press about yourself, that's not going to be great. Whether you're applying for the O1 or whether you're applying for, or whether you're just, you're not applying. You need press about yourself. That's how people get to know your reputation. That's how you cement yourself and solidify yourself as a leader, or at least a player within your field. So when you're doing your marketing plan, how many press articles do you want, right? Forget about the EB1 or the O1. How many press articles do you want? Do you want zero? Nobody wants zero. Of course, the more the merrier, which means that if you're like, okay, my goal is 10 articles this year, which I think is a very healthy goal. My goal is 10 articles this year. I need to figure out who can help me get that. This requires research. Research publicists, research marketing agencies, research players that work with artists as well. So this can be agents, talent managers, entertainment lawyers, all of the above. You have to do the research. You have to put in the work to be able to get those results, right? I also have an artist coaching program where we go through this every week. It's a 6-week program where we go through the different criteria that we can argue with your professional profile that has been evaluated at the beginning of the program, and try to figure out ways that you can obtain those goals. But for example, for press, it's like I said, it's a numbers game. But original contributions, what is your original contribution? How do you even define what an original contribution is? I mean, I always, when I'm doing strategy sessions with clients, I always ask them this question: what is your why? Like, why are you an actor? I mean, yes, I understand you love performing, or I understand you love singing, or I understand like you love creating, assets for a company, but why? Why this and not that? Or, for example, a lot of the times when we're discussing EB-1A with clients, I'm trying to figure out like what their niche area is. What is something about them that makes them different? Because my EB-1As win because I focus on developing a niche area for my clients. So my niche area for this visual artist was this person created the semi-surrealist movement. I mean, I had the ability to evaluate her artwork and see certain themes and talk to her and evaluate with her, and that's what we came up with. But what is your niche area? Like, what is your contribution to the field? Now, contribution could be measured, right? I mean, we can kind of measure it, right? I mean, it can be numbers. Have you sold a bunch of records, right? Have you sold 1 million records? This is just an example. If you've sold 1 million records, that means 1 million people have listened to you. That means you're probably changing people's listening experience. Or innovation. Have you innovated the field in some way? Have you created like a new genre of music? I mean, this is stuff that happens like every day. You might be doing it, but you're not realizing that you're doing it because you're living in the moment of creating your artwork. So numbers, innovation, and advocacy. These are the three kind of pillars that I look for or that I discuss with my clients when we're figuring out our EB-1A journey. Numbers, have you sold a lot? Innovation, have you created something? Advocacy, what are you promoting in addition to being a performer, for example? I have a client. Client is a performer. Client is a performer from an Asian country, that has the reputation of having women that are very thin and docile and different sorts of beauty standards. And part of her advocacy as a performer was to promote body positivity as a performer. So getting those lead roles in those traditional productions that may have had a different type of performer, but being an advocate, putting herself out there and talking about and writing about, body positivity within the film industry in Asia. That's advocacy. So those are ways that you can start to kind of think about, what would be argued within the EB-1. And I strongly encourage you to do this because it will make your consultation or make your strategy session with whatever attorney you go to a lot more interesting and a lot more fruitful, because you want to be able to really understand what you're getting yourself into. A lot of the times people are like, hey, I want to do my EB-1A, and I'm like, you're going to get denied. I mean, there's nothing for me to really argument, right? I need to be able to argument something. I really need to be able to position you as a leader within your field. How are you a leader? You're either selling a lot. How are you a leader? You're either innovating, so changing. How are you a leader? You're either advocating for something, right, bigger than you. Right? For example, I mentor aspiring attorneys. This is something that's bigger than me because I'm contributing to the legal profession by assisting, mentoring, leading young attorneys into developing them into, professionals within the field. So I hope that this was helpful. We're already 30 minutes in, but if anyone has any really specific questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I don't want I don't want it to be too long because then I don't want the content to get lost. But I really honestly want you to focus on like a couple things. So the first thing is exhibitions and press. These are two things that you can control. Just do it. Don't evaluate whether or not this is a good space. This is not a good space. That's not your job. That's the job of the attorney to analyze. Just work so that you can provide the attorney with data to analyze. And number two, press, numbers game. Start today. It's never too late to start. Start today. Figure out who you can, who can source out this data for you. Look to the players within your industry to assist you. If you haven't already viewed my video on LinkedIn and how LinkedIn can support artists, please go and watch it on YouTube, because I think that a lot of the times people think that LinkedIn is just for professionals, right? Like an attorney, a doctor, etc. That's true. It is. It's going to be difficult to get an audition as a performer through LinkedIn. That's just not where that information is communicated. But that's okay, because you're not using LinkedIn for an audition. You are using LinkedIn to develop your network of players within the industry. So if you are not using LinkedIn to connect with managers, agents, entertainment lawyers, marketing specialists, then you are really losing out on a huge chunk of people's data information, because people share a lot of information just like me, that can help you within your career. You can reach out to those people. I mean, there is a technique to reaching out to people, and like that is a different topic that we can have. But you should be in on LinkedIn, and you should be talking to people that can assist you and that are participants and players within your field, regardless of whether or not you are a creative individual or not. So, how do you get circular information from articles, publications? How do you get, well, this is a very specific question, but it's all public data. You can find this on online. How to get circulation from our, this is all online. You can look at press kits, media kits, electronic press kits, etc. The information will be there. Electronic press kits, I think I have a video on that too. Like if you're a performer, why don't you have an EPK? You should. It's very, very important. And again, it really showcases, sometimes I've had clients that have such good EPKs that I've been able to use it as part of their portfolio, which is what we develop together as a team. Once you decide that you want to work with us, the portfolio is the visual representation of your expertise, curated by me, so that the officer really understands what you have what you've done. My goal with the portfolio is to focus on how your efforts have led to your expertise. So I don't necessarily include just final pictures. In fact, I almost never do, because a final picture is just kind of like saying nothing. When I was a little girl, and I'll just leave you guys with this. When I was a little girl, I was in school, and we had to do math problems. And we were graded not based on whether or not we got the correct answer, but we were graded based on our reasoning. So, like, for example, like 6 divided by 3, I don't know if you guys can see this, 6 divided by 3, they weren't looking for the result. They were looking for, let me read it, like 2, 6, and then you get 0. Sorry, guys, you get 0. They graded me based on my reasoning. And it's my same approach when I'm doing my portfolio. I don't want to just see the final product, because you know what? Final products, everybody has a beautiful image of the work that they've created. Everyone creates, especially when you're in the one world. Everyone is a creator. Everyone is an artist or creative of some sort. So final picture really is not doing justice to you and your career. And again, my goal as the attorney is to document and showcase your efforts which have led to your expertise, or which lead to your expertise, is whatever we are arguing, whatever the field of endeavor is. So one thing, and this is the last thing I will lead you with: save, 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 save. Many times, I think actually every client that I've had on my own, working within my firm, has always said to me, "Oh, if I had known, I would have saved this. Oh, if I had known, I would have kept this." And yeah, this is your message from me to you. This is your message to save everything. Do not discriminate with the information that you're gathering in the work that you're doing in the day to day. Do not evaluate and say this is not important. Don't do that. Your work is to create. Please just act or sing or create. That is your work. That is your job. Your number one duty to yourself, first and foremost. And then when you enter into a collaborative professional relationship with the attorney, to the attorney as well, because you want to give the attorney your data. You want to make sure that your attorney is crafting really strong arguments based on your achievements. And the only way to do that is to save evidence, because you can tell me you're great and I can see that you're great on your CV. But if I can't prove it, guess what? It's not going in that legal brief that I have to submit to USCIS. You can have the top achievements, and if we don't have evidence to support it, because this is going on the administrative record, I can't use it. So save, work and save. Think of it like, when you're typing up a document on Microsoft Word and you've got to save like every 5 seconds so that you don't lose the information. That's how you should approach your O1 journey, right? At the beginning, just save everything. Save your emails, save your ticket stubs, save your behind the scenes pictures, save your posts, make posts about it, work on your social media. I can do a whole video on artists and social media and how they're losing out on a lot of really great opportunities to develop their professional profile, not only for their career, but also for O1 and EB-1A. I've heard from several people that they don't like to use social media. Well, guess what? I do a lot. A lot of the times I use social media because it says I can create a lot of really strong arguments to position you, that positions you as a leader supported by the data that you give me. So really work on all facets of your career because I'm sure you guys love what you do. I'm sure you love being an artist. I'm sure you love being a creative person. So continue to be you, continue to be great, continue to create. And then once you're ready for that O1 journey or that EB1A journey, you can kind of just present everything to the attorney and have really interesting conversations that will lead to success. And in my client's case, their success for themselves is getting the EB-1A green card so that they can continue to stay in the US and work without continuing to continuously file an O1. So to confirm, does it make a big difference if you don't have any awards as a musician? No, it's not dispositive. I know awards of international is a criteria or two, but you only need 3 out of 2, correct? No. So awards is its own standalone. So think of it like this. If you get like an Academy Award, then I can just, and I've done cases for people who have won Emmys and won SAG Awards, etc. Their petition's like this big. Because all I'm doing is arguing the award. I'm not arguing the regulatory criteria. So the law actually states it's either award or the 3 out of 10. So you don't need awards. Many of my clients often don't have awards. It's not dispositive. So people who win major awards, their petition's this big. For the other types of clients, their petitions are this big. I'm working on another visual artist, and I think his petition is like 1,500 pages. So yeah, this was a lot of information for you guys, and I hope that it was helpful. I hope that it provides further context and insight from someone who does this every day, from someone who is a former artist and who really understands, immigration law as it's applied to artists. And I wish you the best of luck on your EB-1A or O1 journey. Happy New Year. I decided to make this video today because it's such a beautiful day. And January is usually a time where people start to think about, changing their lives, changing their goals. If you are thinking of making the change, this is your sign. This is your sign to start to make the changes within your life to get you to what is success to you. Bye, everybody, and I will try to do another live later this week. Bye-bye.